Okay, there being 6:30, we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under Mass General Law 38, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded.
I'm up.
Ray, do you want to say something?
Yes, I have a letter for the board that I'll read. I was either going to give it to the chair or he suggested that I read it myself. To the Zoning Board of Appeals and the general public. This letter was written October 30th, 2022. This is in reference to a public hearing held on October 26, 2022, 6:30 p.m. We as board members are volunteers, spend countless hours at hearings, review documents, do research, go on site visits, etc. In all the hearings that I've been involved in as an associate member and a regular member for the past 4 years, I have witnessed the chair and the vice chair and its members conduct meetings with integrity and in a professional manner. At the end of one of these hearings and video as part of the recording, a comment was made by an individual from the public that this was the most corrupt hearing he has ever witnessed. I personally take offense to that accusation and slander. I personally think that the board acts in a professional way at every hearing. We have all sworn to uphold the rules and regulations of the town of Westport and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I feel that the record needs to be set straight. We all have the right to disagree. I took an oath to protect and serve in the military, and I never left my post under fire. Signed, thank you, Raymond F. Elias, zoning member of the Board of Appeals. And I'll give this to you, Roger, for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Ray, thank you. That was in relationship to the individual that came up after the hearing, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Ray, for that.
Be nice.
Be nice.
I was close to standing up at the hearing, but we already had started another hearing.
So the first order of business is a petition from Colin and Michaela LeBray for a finding that demolishing the existing house and replacing it with a single-family dwelling shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood as mandated by zoning bylaw Article 5, Section 5.2.3. Subject property is located at 212 Cabin Neck Road, Westport, Mass, and is shown in Assessors Map 50A, Lot 2. Voting on this petition will be Jerry Coutinho, Barbara Pondelillo, myself, Roger Menard, Constance Gee, and Raymond Elias. And the way we'll run the hearing is I'll have the petitioner come up, provide whatever information is pertinent. The board members will then ask questions of the petitioner or the petitioner's representative, at which point I'll then open it up to the public. Once we've heard from the public, we will then close the hearing and render a decision. So will petitioner come forward? And if you have a comment, when I get to the public hearing, you come to the microphone, state your name and address. You can both come up. She gets the better chair.
That young fellow to come up with you?
Yes. He's going to learn. And we have someone else here too who might answer questions if we cannot.
So just one other thing, because this is a finding, it requires a simple majority. And I also want to remind everybody that the finding for a not substantially more detrimental in accordance with town council is focused on things like safety and parking considerations, traffic considerations. It does not, architectural considerations are not valid reasons for rejecting this petition. So I mean, we don't really get to choose how our neighbors, what color they help paint their house, or what kind of windows they use. We have to rely more on things like safety factors and traffic flow and those kind of things. So anyway, so you're up.
So thank you for everyone's time this evening. My wife and I, Michaela, purchased this property in August of 2020, and as planned as a full-time residence for our family. And we didn't do a home inspection, and that was our fault. And there was no attic. So we spoke to Ralph, and we got a demo permit, and we started to take it apart, open up the ceiling, and we realized this was like 3 cottages put together. It was just like a total disaster. However, with the help of Chris Fagan, we felt that we could utilize enough of the existing structure to renovate. As this is my fault, and I totally screwed up because I left my contractor down there pretty much unsupervised during this time, and he was speaking to him on the phone. He kept calling me and telling me this wall doesn't work, I'm not gonna be able to use this wall, and I knew that it wasn't good. However, when he sent me a picture of the last wall taken down, I knew I was in big trouble. And at that point, we went to Ralph, and Ralph explained that we would have to come before zoning because the house had been demolished, and then it kind of set us with the way that the flood zone restrictions work. It created a really complicated situation because we were no longer, the cost of the project was going to be 50% more than what we had planned, which means then we would have to bring the property up to code so to have like half of the house on stilts. So at that point, we realized we couldn't even use the foundation, and I felt it was best before going to zoning to first get approval from Conservation Commission on the plan on how to put the property up on stilts. And that process, we worked with our environmental engineer as well as Chris and the structural engineer back and forth, and the structural engineer's plans are as part of the package you have to create something that would be acceptable to the state and the Conservation Commission. A few things were changed, so the driveway was shifted over than we originally had planned, closer to the house. That's probably the main change that came of the Conservation Commission's meeting. It was approved in August, and at that point then I started assembling this package for the board. So here's where we're at. And then what we tried to do, I should say, with Chris is we tried to stay within the footprint. The foundation is was very choppy, and some of the original pictures show that because of the different structures that were put in at different times. And we tried to, this house is, the plan of this house is trying to stick within the perimeter of that foundation, right, to not effectively use more of the yard space than was already used.
Okay, I'm going to read into record then the letter from Ralph Souza, the building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer. On June 10, 2021, building permit 21-414 was issued to construct an addition and alter the existing single-family dwelling. After a recent site visit, it was noticed that the existing structure was demolished and removed. After review of the revised construction documents, the proposed new structure is 2 levels with approximately 3,154 square feet in area, including decks and porches. The original dwelling total square footage, including decks and porches, was approximately 1,666 square feet in area. After review of the Westport zoning bylaws, Article 5.2.3, alteration, pre-existing non-conforming structures or uses may be altered, provided there is a finding by the Board of Appeals that such an alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. That's from Ralph Souza, and that's what essentially started all of this.
Correct.
Are you also saying now, Ralph, that this is in a flood
I
zone?
didn't say in a flood zone, but just backing up a little bit, the demo permit I gave them was a non-structural demo permit to evaluate the original structure.
Mhm.
So that was the original demo permit. So usually I do that so they have the ability to tear the inside out and have engineers come in and look at it.
Right, right.
Then go from there, let the engineers look at it, go from there. But like you said, he wasn't around, and they kept tearing stuff down before he was up there.
I have a question for Ralph. Ralph, the demolition permit, as you just described, was issued 11/6/2020.
Yeah.
And that was just for doing a remodel.
But that was prepared plans for a remodel.
I went out and visited the site on October 17th, and it's definitely not there. I mean, it's just a foundation. I mean, there are a lot of cracks in the foundation. The concrete blocks are disintegrating in places. But the questions I had while I was there, and I don't see a site plan, the actual a survey of the place or the dimensional distances from each house. But my question is, I did see the stakes in the ground on like 5 inches off the two-stall garage.
That's the property line.
Okay, and there's one by a pole, a light pole, which is the other end of it.
Right.
I didn't walk into the property any further. I happened to be with Mr. Allen. He was walking that day, and I kind of gave him a ride because it was raining. It started raining pretty hard that day. But my question, Ralph, is do they need, before they write proper document, do they need a demolition permit that says that they demolished the entire place?
Yeah, they would have needed a demo permit to demolish the site. Again, it got out of this.
Yeah, I understand that, but do they have to have that first before they go any
Well, they should
further?
have, well, they had a non-structural. Where,
I understand that
again,
part.
I'm not there to see, non-structural means the outside structures are there, building's got it outside.
And is there, I didn't see it in our packet.
The site plan was part of the submission to Concom. I'm sorry that I don't have it printed. I'm pretty
That's an
sure-
important part of what we do here.
Showing the
too.
setbacks from the
Yeah,
property
I
line.
was pretty sure it's on.
I tried looking for it.
It's
Submitted.
got proposed conditions.
I did see the surveyor stakes. I did see that when I was there.
Okay, on a related item, I'm unclear about a couple of things here. This picture here, that is not what you're going to be building on. This has been filled in, is that it?
It hasn't been filled in because we couldn't get approval to do anything with the property until, which truthfully, we still can't until the state returns Concom's approved plan has been submitted to the state. So once, we can't proceed with the plan until that gets sent back.
Okay, because when
There's a foundation
When I
there
went
now,
there-
correct? Just the empty
well, I thought it
foundation.
was more like this, level with the ground. This is, what is this picture?
That's an old.
Yeah, but what is that? I mean, it was part of your
That was the floor before, that was the floor, before he pulled the
Things
floor,
like that.
before he pulled the floor.
Same thing with that
And I think that
wall.
one wall he left up and then,
Okay, but is this wood and this basement is underneath that wood?
it
Is
was that previous to him pulling up the floor, correct.
Jerry, you want a picture?
Well, I went there, but
Went there.
Yeah.
it looked to me like it was just,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
that.
it's just the
It's
foundation.
Yeah, there's no.
okay, well, let me go further, because, again, I'm a little bit confused, because in your letter, which you put, instead of filling it out in the application, you put it in the letter, you've attached the architectural engineering plans for the project. As can be seen in the plans, our intention is to utilize the structure's previous footprint while adding a second floor of living space. Now, that says to me that you aren't changing a thing in terms of the size and shape of the house. Is that correct?
The shape of the foundation is like, we're basically using the footprint, but we're not having it like, it's, if you look at, I'll pull up a picture of it.
You're filling in the L?
It's kind of like a U and another U, and this is something really.
Okay, but my
different.
point is,
You want to question?
my real question is, are you using the same footprint, which is what you said in your letter?
That would be a good question for my
I can
architect.
switch out.
Let's see.
Yeah. Switch out.
It does make a difference to us, because if you're not using the same, that means we get different setbacks, as Ray was mentioning, and we don't have a record of any of that. We don't even have a record of what's here, never mind change, so, go ahead.
I know you had site plans.
I do have a site plan, yeah, I have all that.
The Concom wouldn't let you out of there without one.
Yeah, I
I'm
know, they
sure,
did the
so.
whole thing.
Yeah, I know you have existing and proposed site plans. So there is a small section of the
Excuse
building.
me, name and address, please.
Chris Fagan, 75 Calendar Avenue, Newport, Rhode Island.
And you represent,
Yeah, I've worked with Colin. I've been his architectural designer.
who's your
for the
architect?
project.
Okay.
So yeah, basically the perimeter footprint stays the same. So we're not encroaching any further on any of the setbacks, side, front, or rear. It's basically, there's an interior section that area is filled in somewhat just to make the program of the house work a little bit better. And I could probably show you. It's a little small here, but
Yes.
basically this house is a byproduct of multiple additions over time. And so there's a little sawtooth situation that goes on.
What's the number of that page, so that I can reference it here?
Do we have
No,
one?
that's the, it's just,
This is the town assessors.
it's,
Oh,
These are the
I
things.
thought this was your,
no.
I'll compare it to mine. So
okay.
we basically have a little sawtooth condition here in the front, which was 2 bump outs that were added after the main cottage.
Yeah,
And essentially what we're doing here is filling in that corner to get basically an entrance. So it's this section here that gets filled in.
filled into what degree? Even with the?
I mean, we're adding
lesser
about-
one or a larger one, or there's none there now?
It basically is gonna fill in this void space that's here. So on the assessor's plot, this house is listed at 1520 square feet. And our plan has it at 1776
So
square
if
feet.
I'm looking at it, then it looks like there's a 5-foot,
A 5-foot jog, yes.
right, so are you just running that 5 foot straight across?
Yes.
Okay.
That one there, what is that, so that I can read?
This is A1.
A1 level, is that in this stack or this stack?
It's in this stack, yes.
They're one year left.
So,
The other stack, sorry.
is that what you're doing?
Yes, that is,
Okay.
and that equates to about 250 square feet of area that's being increased. And that is, from what I understand, that does not increase on the side setback, rear setback. It is basically internal to the lot.
So the rest of the perimeter is the same?
The rest of the perimeter stays the same, yeah.
Okay.
So everything back on the water side.
All right, now I'm on the same page as you are, so show me here where this is.
So,
There's a picture.
I'm not looking at that one, I'm looking
Where's
at
that
your
come
plan.
it's essentially
I haven't found that in my stuff.
right here, sir. It's this section right here. So this kind of bumps.
That one.
This
That's
bumps
all.
in,
That's not it.
That's it.
and so it's
Oh,
this section
it's
right
upside
here.
down. I'm like,
But on that plan, this one here, this goes out here.
Yep.
It goes out here. Show me on this one where this is, right here.
It's this area right here.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
asking. So that is where here?
Yes,
Where on this plan? I'm asking you.
right here.
So,
So this is that north property line here, up here.
yeah, this is,
Yep. And then this is that bump out, right here.
okay.
And we're basically filling in this section right here. Yep, you can come around and then we have the bump out in the
What
back.
is this showing? It's showing them separately, what is that?
I mean, these are just
Are those
different
decks?
sections. in the-
Porches?
There were various porches and additions to the historic,
Covered or uncovered?
covered.
So they would be considered the interior of the house?
Yeah,
The rear one, everything was covered. There was
Yeah.
a roof over the rear patio. Right there.
So it had a foundation
Is
under
this what
it?
they're talking
Yeah,
about
it's
right
those
You
here?
can't use that foundation
This?
anymore?
no, the foundation is compromised. It was not basically built to modern code, so,
So this was the foundation you're talking about?
yeah,
So that has been or will be removed?
that'll be removed.
This is there now, but
It is
you've got to
currently
dig
there
it all
today,
out
that'll be
and
removed.
then put new foundation exactly where this foundation
Now,
was.
yeah,
Correct.
I'm confused.
Okay, so is this?
Does look pretty compromised. I mean, I got
Yeah.
close to it, so.
So is this what you're talking about right here? So is this the part that's bumped out
So
here?
the front of the house on the street is, this is the entry to the house. So the front, it's right here. It's this space. Right, Chris? The front of the house, right basically where the front door is gonna be. So see this like goes in here, like there's it's that space in there that's bumped out.
Where's the north on this?
I know, I'm
But-
trying to
but
figure
this
out which
is right
side's the
here.
water side.
But this doesn't match
Okay, so
up
this is
with
north.
this.
So
Is that-
north,
The north is here.
so the kitchen is on the south,
The kitchen is
facing
on
the
side,
water.
yep, The
Right.
water's out here.
That, right?
Yep.
And then that,
See, the water
is
is
that,
over here, not
and then he's
over
filling
here.
in.
I
Yeah,
thought
but
the
then
water was on
forward.
the
it
south
doesn't match
side.
that over here.
Right,
I mean, it's
what's
the
this
peninsula
then?
wraps
That's the
around.
back of the
Yeah,
house.
I
That's on,
understand.
that's
Yeah,
on the
they're
water.
So
basically
that's being
facing
added.
No,
relatively
this is
east
already
up.
there. This was, the
Back.
space was
'Cause it-
already there.
Well, where is
Thought they
that
were
on this?
facing south.
That
East
here-
would be the east
Yeah, this
side
That's
of
the
the
way it is,
river,
Yeah.
This is-
Right.
wait a minute. This
where
is-
Horseneck Road is.
Yep.
Yeah,
So they're more south.
right,
That's
that's what I'm saying.
this.
Do you live on
That
Cadman's
right
Neck?
there.
Yes,
is
I
this.
Oh,
Okay, he's
And right
nodding,
there
he's
is
agreeing
this.
with
Okay.
me. I don't know who you are, but
My
I walk
apologies, I
there all the
Okay.
So
time,
it's kinda
so I
like
know
if
the
you see
area well. I've
straight,
watched
yeah.
this
So
progression.
it's kind of like, if you were to look at it like that.
So the house is facing south.
Right, so
The survey.
so
was
it's
sort
this
of-
little area right here. Okay.
Down here.
Yeah, it's really hard
Yeah.
But
to,
he said it was over here.
Okay.
No, it's south.
Okay, so,
It's pretty much right facing the water. It's a great spot.
right, oh, yeah. Yeah.
So why is Concom letting you have a full basement yet putting part of it on stilts? Is it that?
We don't have a full basement, so I'd say that probably 40%.
But no, I'm saying, but here you have you have a basement,
Okay, I've got to pull up the engineering plans that work.
right? So you've got a basement, and you got stilts.
Yeah.
Right, seems to, like, is it
Because
because this?
that part of this structure right there is not in the flood zone. That's
Okay,
why
oh, so it's
Yeah,
it's
it's like the
certain
house
enough.
is half in the flood
Oh,
zone.
is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
so
flood line
you're
goes
you're
right
past,
through the
you're
house.
past
Oh.
the 200 mark or whatever
Flood
they
line goes
require, right?
Oh, because of the slope.
Right.
Because
Mine
of the
does
slope.
too.
Right,
My
I was
house
there.
goes-
There's a pretty good slope there.
Yeah, so
So
that's
the-
why.
Yeah, okay.
So the north side, right, I guess that would be the north side. It was higher than the
The
south side.
street side is
The
higher.
street
than
side,
the-
which
right.
is north, right?
Right. Not
Yeah,
by
really.
much, but by like.
It really dips in the back.
Really, wait.
And so where is the septic system in the well on this?
In the front.
There's a, near the light pole, there's a round collar,
There's like, if you see kind of.
near the sidewalk?
If you
There's
went
something
to
around near the
towards
sidewalk.
house, Yeah, between the front of the house and the light pole.
Yes, okay.
But not, it's not between.
I do have a photo of that.
what
I took a
happens
photo.
to the little garage that's right up next to the other garage?
It's a two-stall, that's part of the
Leaving
problem.
that stays.
That stays? And
Yeah.
what about the little boathouse?
That stays too, we're not supposed to touch that.
Okay, I just want, there's just a lot of structures on
Yeah.
that property.
Right.
It's tight in there.
So are you going to rebuild the little garage or what?
I mean, maybe side it,
Uh-huh.
put siding on it, but we don't have plans to rebuild the garage.
Okay.
It's
The garage
kinda
looks
expensive.
like the best structure on the building. On the whole place, yeah.
The garage, yeah.
Now, Ralph, shouldn't we have noted on this that this was in a flood zone and that they had to do work because of the flood zone?
Flood zone, because of the flood zone. It's in a big zone. A lot of it, not all of it.
So you're gonna have to put the backside of the house up on stilts.
The river
Part
side
of
of the
it.
house.
The river side of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that, in order to be with code for what the environmental laws are.
Right.
It's like a foot and a half up on stilts. Maybe we were a foot and a half under where we needed to be. So it was either, one of the things we considered doing was going to FEMA and coming up with a plan to fill it in and raise it. However, that would take another year or two to get approved.
Oh, right.
To get out of the flood zone, so that's why we went with the stilts idea.
Yeah, but you're only talking a couple of feet. I mean,
A
that's,
foot and a half, it's 18 inches.
I mean, it's not like
Right.
some that have to be, 10 feet. It's,
I have to say, that's a very creative way of dealing with,
It's been a long road. It's been a long road and a lot of, we just tried to take it month by month.
so you pulled the, you found the whole thing was made out of strapping,
Yeah, I was shocked.
like 1x3s or
It was amazing. The whole house was built out of 1x3s.
1x3s.
And it never did.
I looked at those photos, and I didn't see any 1x3s in any of them, so I don't know what I was looking at.
Yeah, I didn't
saw
think they
all
were
the-
1x3s either, but.
But it really doesn't matter.
Because it's
That
gone
doesn't
now.
matter.
The whole
So it
roof,
doesn't
the
matter.
entire roof was,
Right.
if you look at the pictures of the ceiling, you'll assume.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
saw
yeah, you only
a lot
have
of
the,
2x1.
look here, Jerry, like you have a semi-decent
I have one.
going through, but what's coming down is like
Yeah.
So right.
strapping.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't see any 1x3s in that picture either.
Right, I think right here,
These are 1x3s. That was the roof rafters.
the roof rafters, look at
And those are 1x, are those in a
Those are-
2x?
Nope, these are this thick.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, it's
Jerry,
immaterial.
probably rough board, just regular 1 inch.
even these were, this picture's not very good, but even these were, and they had the 2x4 on the flat.
yeah, you can kind of see it here too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
They were
saw
just
that.
itty bitty.
I don't see anything that looks like 1x3s to me,
Yeah.
but fur and
I think the
strip.
true 1x3s, I think what Ray
Yeah,
said.
we're talking about
Not
mini
three
sawmill
quar-
trees.
Not 3/4 and 2.5.
Yeah.
1x3s when they were 1x3s.
Yes.
2x4s were actual 2x4s too.
Right, not 1.5 by 3.5, yes.
It
So
appears
the-
like the kind of the one section of the house was basically like a kit home or something that was put together. And there were two sections of that were like that kit home construction. And then when you got basically towards the, I think maybe the north end of the property, that was a more modern construction type, albeit not super well done, but it was like, more modern than basically that southern section.
They added this part on. That was the most modern side, so if you went to the property, you would have seen a foundation that was like built with.
Yeah, it looked like, okay, this does look like hodgepodge when you're there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just looking at the foundation.
Right.
I couldn't
Yeah.
visualize it being up there, but I did, when I walked around, I goes, well, this is rather small, and how are they gonna fit everything in here?
Now, is that gonna require a new septic system?
It passed Title V when I had purchased the property.
Okay.
So that's what, I have the passing Title V inspection, I know that.
So part
Well, I'm
of,
wondering, we just had new regulations in October of '22.
For new construction.
for
This
the,
is new construction, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Am I right? Yeah. And that's requiring not only a new system, but a new upgraded system. with, the denitrification system, so you might look into that as well. The reason I'm bringing that up is because we don't normally make final passage or something like this without a site plan showing the things we talked about a little while ago, setbacks in each area, and approximate location of a well and a septic. And so I don't know what the board will do tonight, but more than likely we'll look for something like that. And for me personally, I would not be necessarily looking for like an engineered drawing or something, but something like this, but enlarged.
I have it on my phone.
Right, enlarged
Yep.
with the distances to various property lines, and, like I say, approximate location of well and septic. So would that be difficult for you to get?
No, I would say absolutely not. I have it on my phone.
And you
I
can
could
get
print
it onto
Yeah.
at least
I
an
have it.
8.5 by 11.
And then see where the original footprint is too, right? Where the original setbacks, so we can see that it's actually this matching. where, like you said, it is.
Yeah, I think you have both existing
I
and
do,
proposed
yeah.
site plans.
How much
Did
of
the
the, how much
conservation-
of the original foundation are you using?
0.
Really?
Can't use any of it.
Okay, because a lot of it was cinder block, right?
Because the part that could be used is where the stilts need to go.
Ah, okay,
It's where the what needs to go?
Where the
Stilts.
stilts need to
Oh,
go.
oh, oh.
okay.
That's the part
So-
that can't
so-
have a basement.
So all the cinder block and the whatever, that's just,
Gotta go.
it's gotta go.
Yeah, there is, I mean, the foundation that's on that rear half of the structure was done right. And
There's still mechanicals in there, you know? There's an oil tank in there, and
that hasn't been moved, correct? There's no oil in it. But that structure, that cement structure, that was done right. That would have been the foundation I could have used.
Mhm.
However, once I got to the point where I had to bring it up to environmental code,
Mhm.
that was no longer an option.
Yeah.
Mm. It's one of those things where you start off where you're thinking it's a $10,000 job and it turns into 100,000.
More like a
$1 million job when they're done.
Yeah.
The picture here looks pretty nice.
I thought so too. When
Yeah, then you went in with the eraser and, yeah, that's, yeah. Nah.
So Concon didn't question the fact that you're having a new construction, so you'd have to upgrade your septic? Wouldn't that,
They did not bring up the septic. That was not, I mean, they didn't bring up the septic. They told me, I think maybe I heard from Chris Capone that I should go to Board of Health and
Yeah.
that what Chris said was they will suggest that you put in a new septic. You just mentioned that something was passed recently this past month, so Chris said this to me in the summer. So if I have to put in a new septic, I have to put in a new septic.
Mhm.
That's what the law says.
But the reason I was bringing it up is because that may affect the plot plan that we're talking about submitting here with this. If the board does as we usually do, saying that, it's okay to do it subject to the plans and so forth that we have and the testimony that is presented tonight and so forth. So until you know where that septic is going to be, you may have to find that out first. I don't want to.
Yeah, at the time when I spoke to Chris, I was told that I wouldn't need to put in a new septic. So if that's changed, I have to, set up a meeting with him and figure that out.
Yeah, well, with at least the Board of Health.
on the conservation plans, is the well and septic system on that layout that you gave them?
Yeah, so what happened was there is a shared well on the property, and in the plan, we put in a full plan, we proposed to conservation to put in a new well to the property so that it wouldn't affect the shared well. That well position was approved by Conservation Commission, and that was a lot of trying to figure that out. Was a lot of work went into it because of the way that the property is going to need to be accessed, the access to allow for the well. That's part of that access is part of our conditions. I'm trying to remember.
What are the conditions
Order of
that
conditions.
that
We
the
have to-
Conservation Commission gave you?
Correct. In order, we have to do the access a certain way in order to put in a new well. That was part of the order of conditions.
Richard, do we have to do something to notify, to identify that this is also a floodplain consideration? There's nothing in the application or whatever.
Not really, because that'll be up to
That's up to Ralph.
Ralph and, into the building permit and stuff, but I mean, it's good for us to know that. And the reason for the stilts and all of that, but it's not a requirement of our consideration.
Okay.
Now, all of the buildings around you are similar in size and two-story, is that?
Yes,
what
they
I
are
got out
two-story
of it?
homes. Lainey Keller, there's an email in from her. She owns a home that's one house over, and her home was very, very similar situation. It was in 2005, she purchased the home. It was a bit of a smaller cottage, and they went through the same process.
Not really, but,
Okay, maybe not.
well, they did,
He did.
but they didn't get approval.
Okay,
They asked for forgiveness.
okay, I didn't know that.
I actually have an email from
It was
Laney and Marty
2010.
Keller.
It was being built 2010, 2011, the Keller's house. It was being built at the same time my house was being built.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'll
I
read.
know a lot about it.
I'll read this into the record. I assume Maria, you know, you have a copy of this. Thank you for allaying my concerns, dear Mr. Conlon. The proposed plans for your new house on Cadmus Neck are lovely, and quite importantly, the house looks like it will blend in beautifully with the adjoining houses on our street. I'm sure you know that all the other houses on our side of this neck of Cadmus Neck Road are two-story with many peaks and angles, so your proposed house will fit in perfectly. Cadmus Neck is a special place with lovely people that care about their homes and their neighbors. It's clear to us that after spending time with you and your family that you will be a wonderful addition to this tightly knit community. We look forward to seeing you in the community and on the river. Take care, Laney and Marty Keller. I think that's the only correspondence we had on this.
Yeah, I haven't heard from anyone else.
I don't see the house plans as being different than the rest of the
No.
neighborhood. I really don't,
Yeah.
but as a board, I was more concerned with, well, that there's no survey here that says where everything actually is. And that's an important aspect to what decision-making that we do, so.
I can certainly provide that, and I'm sorry for the delay.
Right. You know, if for no other reason that it documents that your new plans still fit.
That was the major.
Right. I mean, staying on the same footprint makes it easy for us because then we don't have to worry about any zoning issues, offsets or whatever.
That's exactly what we focused on, so I know that will show that.
Mhm.
Just too bad we can't use our computer-generated stuff here. He could
I know,
take
I
it from
can
his
pull
phone and throw it
I
right
can
up
pull it
there.
up. If I could email it, if somebody can pull up an email on that screen, I certainly can do that.
I'm not a technology person, I could not do it.
But that's not showing everything. Are you talking about this?
No, he has the plans we want.
The
He
site
has
plans on his phone.
Okay, because the one that you use with conservation.
Correct.
And it shows the well area and it shows the septic area. and
They wouldn't let him out of there
shows
without all that stuff.
The distance from the property
Exactly.
lines.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Exactly right. The Conservation Commission was a process as well,
Mm-hmm.
with some back and forth with Chris in order to make sure that we.
I probably watched this hearing, I just probably can't remember. I remember him saying something about the Board of Health. Somebody had to go to the Board of Health, but you had a representative there, you weren't there.
I was there with my
Oh, I didn't see it.
civil engineer.
Yeah,
Um,
the representative did it.
We both did it together. He wasn't the main, truthfully, I did more of the speaking, and he was there to answer any questions that were, and I'm sure I can.
Yeah, I'm sure you have it.
Could you email that to Maria? You can go to turn your computer on?
Oh, you want to email right now? Oh, computer's on.
Could you do that? Before we do that, is it gonna show the information that we're,
100%.
okay?
Well, the only potential issue there would be if you go to the Board of Health and they tell you gotta put a new septic system in it.
He
Not
actually
quite
has
right.
But that would be a Board of Health issue that Ralph is gonna have.
Correct.
It really would.
And he would have to come back to
Our biggest
us
concern
with different
is
plans
the
if they had to
distance
change. Correct.
Property lines.
Right, the house distance property.
You're gonna email this to her?
Yeah, I can.
And then she can print it.
Well, it's probably too tiny, isn't it? Or-
It doesn't really matter, as long as
But
it's all
if
there.
there's a septic issue, that's a Ralph issue, then he'll have to come back and get another finding if they have to change.
Well, Jerry probably
the
wants to see
approved,
this.
Right?
Well,
Oh, boy.
if they have them change the septic,
Hope I
Right.
didn't
it
change
really
everything
wouldn't
here.
affect
It
us,
doesn't affect
as
us.
long as it doesn't
Affect
affect
the
any
footprints.
setbacks.
Right. And if they do have to affect that, then they have to come back with new plans. The interest rates keep going up. Oof.
Could you pass that around, Ray? Would you mind? The iPad?
The iPad.
I pressed a button, I don't know if I got rid of it, so.
Give this to you.
And it can be blown It's actually probably better if it's on the iPad because you can zoom in versus if you printed it on paper. There you go.
I can print it on 8.5 by 14.
You
I
can.
don't know if that's gonna make much of a difference. And we only have one color copier and a big
Can you
piece.
see where it shows the distances to property lines?
Is this the property line?
Well, yeah, I'm assuming that'd be a property line, and probably this is, and this is, but where's something that shows the distance from here to the... Does this show, I'm not seeing it, it's so tiny, but the distance from the structure to the property line?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
see mine.
because I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, this is the
I
south
have mine
side.
that does. Okay.
That might be the,
And would you like me to email this to you?
Sure. Yeah. We'll print it out.
Kyle, if you email it to me as well, I can pull that up on
You
there.
can. Okay, I'll email it to both of you.
You have my email address, right?
Just want to make sure you read me.
BRANCO. Westport. Yeah, that's it.
While they're doing that, I'll just ask you a question. So basically, it's in effect the same
This is the
dimensions
south.
On the footprint, but it's going to have a second floor.
Correct.
That's really the
That's
bottom
really
line.
what we're trying to achieve.
Hope this helps.
And then your email if he wants to put on here. Yeah, that's right.
Can you folks see anything there that specifically shows the distance from the structure to the property line? I couldn't see it.
These property lines are right on top of each other. I mean, when you go down there, there's not a lot of room. Jerry, there's 5 inches between the stake and the garage.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think
The
when you
good
walk
old
on the walkway, the
days.
walkway's not in the right
You
place.
might have
Or
a better site plan than that.
Okay.
See what I could pull up.
Yeah.
I went the other day to a different property on Cabin's Neck that we were dealing with, and it was about this far from one house to the new trees that have
I don't
been
think you can
put
walk
in.
between those two
But
buildings, can you?
This is even less, 5
You
inches.
can't walk between those two garages.
You cannot walk between the two garages. We're stuck there. Yeah.
As far as the
How do you get to the
shared well,
landing that's down there? By helicopter or what?
You're saying there's a shared well on that property now?
I know what I know
They had
from
that?
speaking with my neighbor who's adjacent to me is that this is my understanding. It was very hard to kind of go back. I tried to pull the well plans and from when it was done, but the well that 212 Cabin's Neck utilizes is a backup overflow well for my neighbor to use as well. When his well, it's like a secondary well.
But it's on your
It's
property.
on my property.
Okay.
And now what you're doing is you're intending to put a new well only to serve
That's
you.
only mine, and he
And
can
the
keep that well for him. But I think I think it is deeded. It was the originally the owner of. I know the owner of at one point the owner of the property was close with multiple neighbors, and that's why you see that the property line is so on the neighbor to the other side. Property line is on top of the house because they gave them a piece of land in order for them to, many years ago, was where I told that, we were told at closing, they gave them a piece of land in order for them to be able to properly build their house that they needed many years ago.
Wow.
So, is this the property line? And over here?
You had it, that's it, but
I can put it out to me.
as far as distances, I have that too.
And this is the south, this is the riverfront. So this is the street property line.
It's approximately 40 feet from the property line, the front of the house.
To the street you're talking about?
Yeah, and then the setback from the set that's the other between the, let me read this, sorry.
The house to the south, the one, the two-story house is south at the very end of the cul-de-sac? That would be, is that to the south? I'm not sure.
To the
Yeah,
south.
to the southwest.
It looks like it's 22 feet to that house.
Yeah, it looked like you had plenty of room over
Yeah, I do
there.
have plenty because they're,
Yeah, it was just,
it's like, if I ever put up, I mean, I wouldn't do this to them because it would almost, they would have a hard time getting in their door if I put up a fence. I wouldn't because it's like they would hate me.
So now, the one that you just said 22 feet, is that from what you would call the property line at the street to the front of the house?
So I can
That's
go,
the
I can
property
go
line
around. I can go around basically from the street to the proposed house. We have 39.2 feet.
Oh.
If we go basically looking at the house on the left, so
Did
the
you
more,
say from
Where
the
the-
street to the house?
yes,
For the
How about
garage?
From the property line to the house?
from the property line,
Okay,
like on the street facing side.
okay.
This shows at 39.2 feet.
Oh, come on.
And if we go to the left, which is the more northern property line,
which is the garage.
yes, from that property line to the house, we have 15 feet. And at the rear, from the rear, the back of the house to the property line, we have 46 feet. And then on the right side, which is the more southern side, we have 22 feet.
So you're lacking, it sounds to me like you're lacking only on one dimension there.
And this,
Because the frontage needs to be 25, and you said you're
And they have
39,
almost, right, almost 40.
okay? And then the side is, each side has to be 10. You're closer than that on one of them.
you know, we're 15.
No,
The garage is, but not the house.
And the
Not-
garage isn't
But the
going to be
garage is
touched.
closer.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
But that's not going to be touched.
No, but it's still
Is that,
a non-conformity.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
but it won't be changing.
why aren't they asking you to take that down?
Why aren't they asking us to take that down?
The garage, yeah. No?
Maybe because it exists.
Yeah.
Why would they?
It's already there, it's already pre-existing on a
That's what I'm
non-conforming lot,
saying.
Yeah.
which,
I don't like
which
it. I
we can
probably
do everything
will.
that we,
It's the way it is.
we can do everything in.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
not-
sorry, I couldn't hear him.
I said it's not something that we're,
Yeah, just curious.
we're not like, we're not in love. If we had to, we probably would say, it's,
Uh-huh.
I think it does a disservice to the front yard, truthfully, but it's a structure, it's there, we were told to leave it there.
You were told to
Well,
leave
well,
it.
we shouldn't take something down if if we have a garage there, you know, don't get
Keep
rid
it
of
there
If
because
it-
you may want another garage
If it's
in
already
the same spot.
existing.
Keep it, you might want to use it for storage or something.
I mean,
Yeah.
And if you take it down, you won't be able to
Never
rebuild
put
it,
that
so,
back up.
You'll be able
right,
to put it back up, yeah.
yeah.
Fool me once, you don't fool me twice, right? Take one thing down.
No, I'm not taking anything down. This isn't one project.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like it's gonna fit in with your house.
No,
I
it's
mean,
gonna
your
be
house
bad.
is beautifully
Yeah.
designed, and
It's
that's
gonna-
kind of
but
like,
for now, it's like why, like that could be used to store for now.
Right.
That could be used to store equipment, could be used to store materials, so.
Mm.
And it's not leaking, it's safe and sound.
Made out of 1x3s.
It is made out of, the roof is made out of, I'm pretty sure it's made out of 1x3, it's pretty bad.
What percentage of the lot is covered by impervious structures, you know, once you're done here, roughly?
That was something that we had, that was.
Did you have to do that with
a-
conservation?
That was, we had to go through Conservation Commission, and that was one of the things that.
Do you
we
recall?
passed.
Do you recall?
I don't want to speak to it because I don't know, I forget what the requirement was.
More than 50%?
It was, we had to be under a certain, because it's a riverfront area, we had to be under a certain percentage of not touching that area, and we more than made it.
I don't think that it exceeds 50% of the lot coverage.
Oops.
What's happening?
I think that the lot coverage is below 50%.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a 12,000 square foot lot, right?
It just seemed that when you're looking at it, it looks like
Yeah, it looks like
The whole
your tight is,
thing.
yeah, it
the
does.
house would be the whole lot.
Right, it's a 1,200 square foot lot, and if the house, the footprint is only 1,700, right?
Correct, so yeah,
And
we're,
then a little, in the garage and the boathouse, right?
Okay, so,
This is bad.
this thing that she just gave us, whose plan was that? Was that the one you just showed us?
That was the plan that was on here that I just read the dimensions from.
Could you do me a favor and just show me, so you can circle with your pen or something. I've got a pen here if you need it. Circle where it shows the dimensions that you showed, at 39, and each of those dimensions that you showed from the structures.
I think you might struggle to read them there. They're pretty faint on that size plan, but.
Yeah, but what I'm looking for is the actual numbers. Did you circle the numbers?
I'm circling where the dimension tag is. The numbers are at the center of them. I think they're going to be a little faint on that size, just because these plans are
I
scaled.
can't see it at all.
Maybe show them
I can show you here.
Same.
So it's the same plan, and there's the 39.
Okay, hold on. Just leave that right there for a second. Okay, here's the thing that says garage. It's way up here.
Yep.
And this thing here. Yeah, I can't see that at all in here because it came out so light.
Where garage, 18, where are you going to show? Oh, 39.23, right on the left corner of the garage.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see that,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah, you try to read that.
It's very light, but it says 39.25.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Your eyes are younger than
I know,
mine.
lucky.
Yeah, so I would never be able to find that. I'll let you guys decide if that's okay for you, because I can't read it. Can't even see it. Can you see it, Bobby?
Well, I can see what he pointed, 39 feet this way.
Yeah, but what did it say, 39?
39.23 here.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, it says 40 feet.
No, see, it's right
Right
in
here.
here.
39.23, that is the garage.
It's right in
Okay,
here
right
somewhere.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I read the whole thing? No, but I see the 3.
Yeah,
And
that's
there's
it. That's what we're talking
Does
about.
Yeah.
the full-size sheet of this, is it more legible?
Yeah. It's 24 by 36.
Well, you know what, that's what we could do. We could make it.
We can just,
approve
here it is,
subject
why just
to-
get the,
to getting that to us by X date, 2 weeks from now, or whatever it may be.
you know, just
Well,
provide
we're going to
the,
be meeting next
provide
week
the
again,
actual
so-
plan, right?
Because once before, recently, we didn't put a date,
Mhm.
and 3 years later,
Right,
we
right,
never
that's-
got it.
Well, this answered my question right here, so it wasn't there and now it is.
Yeah, that's the key piece. Well, I'm gonna call for public.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Thank you, Maria. What they're going to do is, these numbers are still so tiny that we can't read. So they're going to give us a full-size set of plans. And when they do, you can stamp them, date stamp it.
Now, I would just say this, that from my point of view, she wouldn't even have to make a set for us.
No, no,
on
no,
that,
no.
as long as it conforms to what we've got here.
Right.
Then it would just be a couple for the office.
For the office, right.
I think I might have a big one in my car. Can I go check real quick?
Sure.
But even if you did, where are you gonna copy it?
Yeah.
If it's a big
It's a
one.
huge one, yeah.
Yeah, so I think
So
you can-
just, yeah, you
as long
just,
as you can get it to us within whatever. the
And you
board-
want, how many copies?
no, just two,
Just a couple.
just for file.
Okay.
Because after we're done with this, we don't really want to see it again.
Does Ralph need one?
When they bring it in.
So a couple.
Any comments from the public? No. No other comments? I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Move to
Now,
close the hearing?
closing the hearing means that that we'll take no further public input. And then we will deliberate and render a decision. Now, if we have a question, it's okay for us to ask you, but you can't voluntarily provide, oh, I forgot to tell you.
Right.
Jerry, did you make a?
I made a motion to close the hearing.
Okay, do I have
I'll
a second?
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The record shows unanimous. Okay, you want to start this?
I don't see a problem with anything that's going on down there. The questions that I had were answered, and I think that it'll be a good project when it gets completed, and I think it'll fit in the neighborhood with the houses that are already there, to have 2 stories to them already.
And I say the same thing.
Yes, and I drove
I
by the
agree.
property, and I looked, and like you said, the houses in that area are pretty much all 2-story. It's nice now that you're also going to make it flood zone compliant, which is always a big plus, because that's going to be an issue along our shoreline, no matter where you are. You are obviously going to have to abide by, once you get done with us, you realize that's not the end of the story. You still have to work with Ralph and the health department and everybody else, but I think it's going to be a nice addition to the neighborhood. And hopefully it won't be, I mean, with current construction methods now, it'll be, a nice home for you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Beautiful spot.
Yes. Anybody else have any comments?
No, again, it's going to be the way of the neighborhood. Each one of those cottages, I think at some point, are going to be adapted for full-time living, family living, and it's the trend that's going on in your neighborhood.
Okay, anybody propose a motion? I will.
You want me to do it, Roger? I got it.
Just
Yeah.
read it out.
I'll make a motion to approve the finding for Colin Labrie and Kayla Labrie at 212 Cadman's Neck, Westport, Mass. Shown on Assessors Map 50, Lot 2, that demolishing the existing house and replacing it with a single-family dwelling shall not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, to the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood as mandated by zoning bylaw Article 5, Section 523. And subject to the plans that have been presented today.
And I would, yes, subject to the plans dated today, I would also stipulate that that full-size drawing, that we not publish the finding until there's a 20-day period of appeal, and we have to publish the decision in 2 weeks. So I would like to also stipulate that we do not publish the finding until we get the drawings.
Yeah.
We'll have the drawings tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to be specific, I'll give it a date, a week from today, something like that. How's that? No later than a week from today.
Which is 11/16.
3 copies?
Yeah.
3 copies.
3.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So we.
I will second that motion.
I thought I did already.
Okay.
Oh, did you? Okay, I will third that
I don't know,
motion.
did I?
Sort of.
Whichever. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. The record shows unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you so much
I think it's going to be a really
Good
nice
luck.
house for you guys.
Business back.
Certainly a beautiful spot. I mean, you really can't beat the spot. So, hopefully you can bring up a family there, and
That's what we're
congratulations.
Yeah?
Thank you. Our neighbors will be happy.
Of course, it's going to be a little bit long haul for you. Don't expect to be in there,
I know.
anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, maybe when my son is 7, I always
Yeah.
he's turned
Well,
6
I
in
think you're in a
Well,
better
not
position
even-
than we were 2 years ago
2
during
years,
COVID,
maybe
where
2
you couldn't
years.
get lumber. I mean, the tribulations of trying to build stuff.
Lumber's
the
still
past
crazy
couple of
anyway.
years.
A lot easier.
I think we're over most of that, I believe.
Yeah, we are. We definitely are. It's getting a lot better.
It's getting better, right?
Just check that Board of Health.
Yeah, but the mortgage prices are going up.
That's pretty important.
Yeah, that is.
Thank you.
Okay,
all for your
just
time.
remind you,
Really appreciate it.
there's a 20-day appeal process, so
Okay.
you can't do a whole lot.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next order of business is meeting minutes from October 12th,
Okay, Tom.
which was
Nice to meet you.
Stanley Sylvia, on 28 Second Street. That was also a flood zone one.
It has been a
So we
long
have-
time, is right. But
Hi,
Can
Tom.
you,
Hello,
Thank you.
Tom.
He's ignoring you.
Hi.
hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so I have a motion
Sits
to
in
approve
front
the
of me
meeting
in
minutes from
church.
October
You
12th.
talk, of course.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Record show it's unanimous. I will sign this. Okay. The next order of business, we're going to talk about petition fees. Hopefully we can do this fairly quick, although there may be some stuff that may carry over to the next one.
The
We've-
camera off or it has to stay on?
They can stay on.
Okay, I didn't.
It's,
Sure. The
The,
rules are just.
the fees that we have now have been in existence for many years. And they do not represent the actual cost of performing this function. According to town council, the zoning board of appeals is supposed to be revenue neutral. And what that means is essentially the actual cost of rendering a decision must be borne by the petitioner. And that actual cost includes clerical work, it includes advertising, it includes mailing,
Hopefully not
it
legal
includes
work.
essentially our budget. Now, obviously, all of us are all volunteers, so that's a pretty small cost. But I have looked over the past couple of years and the projected FY24 budget, and it is nowhere near $300 on average. If we take our budget and divide it by the number of petitioners we have, it is more representative of $500. And actually, it's a little bit more than that, but roughly $500. And it's been that way for the past couple of years and projected to be the same way next year.
Do you know what the number of petitions was this year?
It's around 15, 16.
All right, so to date, we've had X amount, and we only have 2 left for the current.
We only have a couple left for the year, right? And when I divide it out, now, of course, and the problem with the budget for a zoning board is that it's an estimate of how many, when I come up with the budget for every year, you have to estimate how many petitions you're going to have. I mean, it could be, I mean, it's, it's a guess.
I would think it'd be increasing because.
It pretty
I
much,
do too.
it pretty much has been. It goes through lulls, but it's been in the 15, 16, 17, 18, that kind of number.
Yeah, it was
One of the biggest
14,
factors was that-
17, and 18 in the 3
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
preceding.
Right.
So
Yeah,
Yes,
and I
that-
think it's gonna go up
okay.
because there's so many lots
Tax.
that are non-conforming,
It
and
really
there's no
went
place
up.
to build.
Now, it was also, I know Jim Hartnick, who had been on the planning board for a long time, I discussed this with our administrator, and he suggested we also look to see if the type of petition was a factor in the cost. Now, I've been on the board for several years. Gary's been on it, since the dawn of time. And the difference between a finding and a variance and administrative appeal and the special permits that we generally do, they all take roughly the same amount of time. I mean, it's one hearing, maybe I don't see a major difference between any of those that would cause us to break out a different fee. Now, there are a couple of cases, I believe, that are special,
Like the cell tower.
like the cell tower. That one, I think, that one took 5, 6 hearings, and an enormous amount of time, and
legal
hundreds,
fees.
I mean, just, and legal, I mean, so.
We're still printing stuff for it, so.
And so that particular,
Over and over
that is a special
No, we're
permit.
changing it.
And I believe that one would
And a
also.
variance.
Special permit and variance, right.
Yeah.
But that particular type of application, I believe, is appropriate to be a higher cost, because no matter what we do, you know you're going to have a lot of public opinion, you know it's going to take several. And so what I then I estimate that we should be looking at $1,500 for that particular special permit, just based on the fact that we've already had one and it took 5 hearings. And I went through the numbers, I went through the cost, I went through whatever, and I can justify $1,500 as an actual expense, although we did not include the lawyer's fees.
Is that our budget or is that the town's budget?
That
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Who paid, like,
Through
a
the
couple of weeks
selectmen's
ago,
budget.
Yeah, so it's not really our
Attorney
budget, so
Blake
it really.
was
I mean,
present for CAD.
It's what it cost us.
Yeah, but it didn't cost the zoning board, what didn't come out of the zoning board's budget, right?
No,
It-
That's
well,
correct, but
It actually-
Except for the
we still
time.
should cover it, you know.
Yeah,
In
so
other
I
words,
mean-
the town shouldn't have to pay for somebody else's petition
Right,
to
right.
come before us.
And a couple of weeks ago, Attorney Blake was here. Who pays for that
Yeah,
time?
and that's one thing I haven't added into, incorporated into this is the legal fees when we do ask for
That is
advice.
considerable.
So that-
Ralph, are you on the clock when you're here?
Do we pay for that, though, or is that out of a town fund?
That's out of a town fund.
Okay.
But it's a cost for doing that. Now, Jerry had also recommended, I went through the zoning, our bylaws, and
Isn't there a consultant fee that they could pay? And wouldn't you argue that the lawyers are
but that,
consultant to us?
if
that
we
capacity?
require a consultant, it is in our bylaws that we can charge the petitioner directly
Right,
for
and
that.
I would argue that
So
if we
that's-
have to have a lawyer here to help us,
I
that's
agree with you.
a consulting. They're
Right.
here to consult us. They're not here to make the
Yes.
decision. They're here to
Right.
consult with us.
On a case-by-case
And then they
basis.
should be paying for that.
So
They are paid for that.
Yeah,
You know,
but-
one might be $1,000 for legal, another one might be $2,000.
Right.
If we anticipate it.
Right.
And we are allowed to charge that.
Right. So I went through the bylaws, and there are something like 26 special permits that we could render, that we could be asked to make a decision on. But they are things like we've never done, farm fishing, fin fish farming, shellfish farming.
By the way, I'll say that that's in there, but they've never enforced it.
Right.
Yeah,
So
there's
anyway,
something
there
By
are a
rights,
whole,
they're supposed to come before us,
yes.
but they don't.
There are 26 different kinds of special permits. Of those I've looked at, and they are all, on a table in
Yeah, the table of use.
table of use in our thing.
Yeah.
And in most of those, I would expect would be typical 1 or 2, maybe a carryover, but not 5 or 6 hearings
Right.
for the,
Can we base it on the cost of the project somehow? Like obviously a cell tower, like not a national, like you can kind of break it up to how much the project is going to be.
But
So
this-
it's
but-
a huge, cell tower is a huge project, right?
yes.
It's,
Probably has an estimated cost when it comes in front of us, right?
yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, though, that it has to be revenue neutral to us. In other words, on the average, somebody coming in for a type of permit, we have to say, okay, for that type of permit, the average cost is $500, whatever the real number is, and I base that on essentially the workload for Maria and all the other associated costs.
The copying and the posting.
Well, the other one, advertising gets to be
Even the
expensive.
building department gets involved, like you were just asking.
So, but if somebody comes in with a $10,000 job versus a $100,000 job, if it only still takes her the same amount of time,
Yeah, I'm talking about $1 million jobs
Right,
versus $100,000 jobs.
right.
The cell tower is clearly a $1 million
and that's,
job.
and that's one, you know, because of that kind of job that I think needs to be we know it's going to cost us more to do that particular type of a special permit.
But that's a commercial venture.
That's
That's
what I
a
was
commercial
thinking, can we
venture.
just?
And the
I
same
mentioned
thing that
last time, can we just
Jerry
say
also
commercial
mentioned, that
permits are
it's not,
X?
it's not in our bylaws, but there's a state law for
40B.
for 40B, which is
Affordable housing.
affordable housing. We've only had one since I've been on the board. We just,
Yeah,
Was that
and
Novichok
really
Village?
wasn't- That really, the one that we had really wasn't a real.
it wasn't
It's a
the
40, it's under 40B, but it wasn't like a 40B apartment units, you know, like
Right.
we've had
right,
Village Way and Sanford Road.
right, right.
Those are really, I mean, a year or two.
That's another one that would be extremely expensive, but it's not even like in our bylaws. So I guess we would have to just note a 40, if
Oh, yeah, yeah.
there's nothing in our bylaw that says anything about that. So anyway, I just, you know, like I said, we've been charging $300 forever and a day, and I think it's time, and the town's been losing money. So essentially, the taxpayers have been footing the bill for everybody that comes in front of us. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be revenue neutral.
Other towns, I researched, when you brought this up the first time, I went on other towns' websites, they're charging anywhere from 500 to 800,
So
just for regular stuff that we do.
Yes.
And some of them charge, if there's a continuance here, another $100 goes to the bill. You have to, in other words, if this is continued, you gotta write us a check for another 100. And then they are split rates for commercial.
Yes.
I think commercial should be
New
higher.
Bedford goes $400 for our regular ones, findings, zoning, and then they go to double that for business ones.
Mm-hmm. But see, the problem with that though is that,
Oh, and they may be looking at raising their fees because they're probably too low now.
right. I mean, I've seen some that were over 1,000 and some that were as cheap
Right.
as, you know, 200 or 300. So, you know, I did the same thing. I looked at a whole bunch of different towns. Anyway, that's, you know, I think we need to adjust, or I broached this with Jeff Blake just to make, I want to know the process. How do we, who's responsible? First, I reached out to Jim Hartnett, and I went to our town council, and the town council said, no, the zoning board can set the rate. It has to be approved by the select board, but, you know, we look at our budget, what it costs to do things, and then we can at least recommend, here's the rate for these kinds of functions.
So if last year's, or this current year's budget was 10,000, and we bumped it 2.5%, that would be X amount right there, without doing anything, because that's what they're tacking on everything in the town budget. In my opinion, I think we ought to at least go to 400 and double that number for a commercial enterprise.
I think that's too cheap.
Yeah, I
I
think if
think
you're
that's too
saying we're
cheap as
spending 500 now,
500
it's
now.
gonna be, it's gonna be more next year because everything's going up, right? I mean, postage is going up.
Yep.
Copies going up, you know, et cetera. So I think instead of having, you know, doing it this year and then doing it again next year, looks bad, right? I'd rather just set it at a rate that we, you know,
Yep, that we can live with for a few years.
Yeah.
But if we go to 400, we're going up 25%. If we go to 500, we're going up.
But I can support, I have data that says that's what it costs us.
You can document it.
Yeah.
And I would, go on, I'm sorry,
I keep trying to interject something.
Yes.
I think that the idea of charging extra for each continuance is a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I think it will encourage people to come before the board ready with the materials that they
That's
need.
correct.
Yep.
Instead of people coming and saying, oh, God, you have no idea about that, and then we tell them that, yes, indeed, this is needed, and then the second continuance, they come back and say, oh, I never heard about that before. Oh,
Yeah.
geez. You know, I
No,
think it would I think it would help. I think it would encourage people. I'm not talking about a huge sum, but to come prepared and anyway.
I think maybe the first continuance should be included
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't understand these things, but if it has to be continued again, I would go along with
Yeah,
that.
and I'm just,
Yeah, I think that's
And
reasonable.
sometimes it's us. who
Sometimes it's us.
Right, and I
Right.
think that's
Because we want
Not
to check
them.
something legally
Yeah.
or
Correct.
whatever.
right.
sometimes it's us.
That third continuance for
Well,
Bill,
I think we can charge for contingencies, right? Like you said, maybe the first one is a free one, the second
Yeah.
one is a thing, and we reserve the right to waive that fee if we're continuing.
If it's us that's causing the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I
That's a
think
good
that's,
idea.
You know,
that kind of gets with what you're saying.
but it's, because I hate to charge them, like, what happens if one night, we're having the continuance and 3 of you get stuck in traffic or something happens, there's something. And
right, that's different.
And we have to continue it again, right? I mean, that's
Right.
something based upon the board. So I think if the continuance is based upon the failure of the applicant to
Right,
produce
right,
the
right. I mean,
information
this-
required by the board,
Right, right. I mean, there's a lot of
You know?
times we do a continuance because we want to do a site survey.
yeah.
Well, that's not
not
their
their
problem.
fault, yeah.
Right, that's our
I mean, and
nickel.
even to the case that they don't know what they're doing, ignorance of the law is no excuse. But yes.
First time.
Yes, I mean, but I think we tried to be as helpful as we can to the applicants, so, you don't have to, I'd rather see less, look.
So on average, we continue 50% of the time.
Yes, but you also have to consider that not all continuances cost us any extra money. Now, just hear me out. Say we had 2 hearings tonight, and we do that often, right? And they both got continued. Next month, they both got approved or denied. That's 1 per month. So that didn't cost us any more money.
I only added them up, Roger. I just
Right?
added them up and
Isn't that
divided it
right?
out.
So a lot of continuances are not necessarily extra cost.
Well, sometimes it's continued because they need to bring new plans, and then Maria needs to make copies of the plans, and then she has to listen to 2 hearings instead of 1 to do the minutes. That does add time, which
But-
does add
but like I
cost,
said-
right? I don't,
I said, it's, anyway.
Yeah.
But those, Roger, those are all things that are being done by us that we can say, hey, this is what it cost Maria to do these things twice.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so, anything else besides, I mean, and yeah, we do have to handle continuances, but sometimes they get carried on, like, the one we have that, like, for a septic system that took 4 or 5, when we didn't really make any progress, but we still had to be here, Maria still had to be here, we still had the right meeting minutes. All those costs are still associated.
And you have
Somebody has to pay that.
the video, I'm sure we're
Right,
paying for.
right.
I mean, is that part of our, I mean, I don't guess I don't know what's in the budget, so, like, what do we pay for and what we don't pay for? And how we figure out how much it's actually costing.
When do we have to have this in by?
Actually, we're going to probably talk about this again next, because it won't probably be until the December that will go in front of the select board. I've already put it on the docket,
Yeah.
just to get it on the docket.
Now, we've determined that this does not have to go to town meeting, correct?
I
Has
don't
to go to
believe it does.
selectmen.
Just the
Select board
selectmen.
does.
Just the select board.
Right, right,
So therefore, there's really no time frame.
right. I mean,
I don't see them,
But
I don't see them arguing about raising fees.
No, I don't think
No.
they will.
Well,
Nope.
But it would be good to clarify the legal costs.
the legal costs, right,
Yeah.
yes,
What they actually are,
yes.
to begin with, and where they apply. So building them into a fee in advance is one option,
Mhm.
but then
But don't.
building it in as a
Do we get
professional
it?
expense.
Yeah, I think that's probably
On a
the.
case by case is another option, and I think we just need to
And do
look
they
at
actually,
those.
and then does it actually get done?
Do we actually get an invoice for when Jeff is here,
I
for
have no
us
The
particularly?
bill,
We
yeah.
don't even
I have
know.
no idea.
So maybe if we
I
talk
was
to Jim
gonna ask.
Harnett, we would know about that.
How about
If
when
you
we have
call
to go
him-
to court?
That's-
I have,
I
Look
can
at all the
find
stuff
that
we're
out.
going
have
to
an
court.
answer to that.
Yeah.
Oh, Maria has an answer.
When the invoice comes in every month, it delineates which
Yeah.
departments
Right.
and how many hours for whatever.
But they don't send it to us, do they?
No.
No.
because
We don't pay it.
we don't
So
pay
we
it.
could have Jim Harnett send us that.
Yeah, sometimes I think. it's a
But if
great
we
idea
don't
if
pay
they
it,
did,
then-
because Then we could look to see.
I would like to know.
Yeah,
I know, but if we don't pay it
Not
as
about,
the
not about
ZBA,
legal
we
ones
shouldn't
that
add
go to
that in.
trial, Jim. That's not what I'm talking about. When we use legal here,
Yeah.
what that actually costs.
It's-
Yeah.
Because
I
now
would-
we can actually put it to this case.
Yeah.
Once it gets out of our hands, it's out of our hands once it goes to, it was out of our hands once it went to the court.
Yeah, that's a
We couldn't
court-
do anything after that.
But there are a lot of times when we have to clarify the legality of
Right.
things for just a regular hearing.
I mean, all you gotta
Right,
do is
that's
ask.
what I'm saying,
Just
the
ask
ones
him
that
what-
are
Just
from
ask him
here.
what his
Yeah, but
billable
he
rate
may
is for the
not-
town.
He doesn't necessarily have to come here.
Yeah.
There's been a
But he's
number of
asking,
calls
he's
that-
answering, yeah.
I understand
You're
you.
being charged for every single email you sent to him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Lawyers bill every 6 minutes.
Yes.
Every letter.
It takes me
that
7
comes.
minutes, I'm charging you for 12.
Yes.
It's just the way it is.
Yep, yep. Yes.
So all I really need to know is what his billable rate is and what the woman's billable rate is.
Right, right.
Every text,
Okay,
every.
so,
Yeah, I got it all.
We
I
take
got one of
some
those
this
invoices.
time to review some of those items and
Yes.
get our thoughts together.
Yes,
That's
so,
okay.
yeah, and that's, I wanted to start it this week, and we can
Yeah.
We have a next, we
continue.
have a meeting
And
next
if we have
week,
to
right?
continue again, there's nothing rushing on this, because it's whenever we, as a group, coalesce on what these fees are, what the, actually cost us, then we will go to the select board. So
When the-
it's not like there's a timeline.
When the finance committee discusses this, do you go in front of the finance committee with your recommendation?
For our budget.
Yeah, with our budget.
I send the budget in, the town administrator always asks for a budget. I
But
send-
you don't go in front of the finance committee to make your case about why we're doing this?
No, they just usually accept it.
Yeah.
But we might go there.
We have gone to the finance committee
Yes.
in the past. I guess it
Yes,
depends
and,
on maybe if
on
we're
occasion we
increasing the budget.
On occasion, we've even just presented it at a select board meeting and described the budget and where the budget came about. I mean, it's not a guesswork. Well, it's not a guesswork as far as what our costs are. The guesswork is
How many?
How many you have?
It's a guess, And, of course, we have a lot of years of history of how many there are, so it's not a
Seems like
wild
a-
ass guess, it's just this,
Seems like a lot
Watch
more
this,
than
what do you think it's gonna
16,
be? I
doesn't
think it's gonna be
No, I know,
25
sounds
next
like-
year.
And how many
It
was
feels
this
like
year?
it's like
25.
How much
Well,
was like this
Well,
year?
it seems like it's different.
It went
But I guess a lot of
14,
But I guess a lot of
17,
things
18,
continue,
and I don't know how many
Yeah,
there is
everyone
this year.
makes it
continue.
like-
Right, right.
So,
Okay,
yeah, I think
so-
at least,
25, I'm
I would
betting.
say at least 25, yeah. Because it's gonna be increasing, because there's so many non-conforming lots in Westport, and there's nothing available for sale, right? So everybody who's buying these non-conforming lots, or has these non-conforming lots, are going to be doing something to them. So we're gonna have more, and I would agree, if we had 20-something this year, we're
I don't
definitely
know,
gonna lose.
it's around 20, I think.
Yeah,
Like, I'm saying here like 18.
yeah.
It's, I
But
think
I
it's in that
definitely, we're
kind
gonna
of
hit
number.
we're gonna hit the 2.0 numbers next year.
So,
I mean,
so.
the potatoes are gonna have to come back
Again,
next
what
year.
I would propose we do is for the standard ones that we normally get, the findings, the administrative appeals, the variances, the ones that are people-related, we have a fee or a set of fees. A fee, and then if we want to add in, if there's a continuance, then there's another fee. Those I would consider to be the normal petitions. The ones that are more business-related, like the cell tower, we generate a different fee structure because we know it's going to take just that much longer. And I'm thinking, and again, it's I can certainly justify $1,500, but that doesn't even include. But again, that one is one that you're going to need a lot of legal help with. So, and that's one thing I will check on is where do the legal fees come in and how is that managed? That and the 40B as well. I mean, that's I think we'll have to do a little research to come up with a number on that.
There may be a provision in 40B that sets those fees.
Yeah.
There may be, okay? So many per unit or something like that. So that may be solved for us, but we need to look
I mean,
into that.
Okay.
we can be transparent to the
Jim's
commercial,
gonna know what that is.
to the commercial guys, right? You can say, okay, and consulting fees include legal fees. Our typically our town council charges between X and Y an hour, and telling them what that is, then they know how many hours they're in, they're getting an idea what they're gonna get charged, right? And that actually helps them speed along the process, because if they don't want to be spending X amount of dollars an hour for a lawyer to sit here with us, then they're gonna be a little more expedient during the meeting, right?
Yeah.
But if we can just give them a range, because it's going to be different, right? I mean, it's because sometimes you're going to use the guy, whoever his name is, and then other times you're going to probably use the woman, and whoever, or they may actually, bring us somebody new.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure the town has to deal with them for what they're getting charged for an hour. I'm guaranteed they've got a blended rate.
Okay, I think we have enough to think about. Hopefully next week we can corral this a little. I sort of want to at least get this out to everybody because I think it's something we need to do. I mean, it's we've been charging.
Probably overdue.
We've been losing.
Probably overdue, Jerry. What do you think?
Yeah, way over.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to table that for now. I'm going to continue this to next when.
We'll have to charge you, though.
And charge for it, right?
This is his first continuance.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about, there's two other things. Well, first of all, we were supposed to have on the schedule was an executive session. I'm postponing that to next week on the advice of counsel because there are particular steps that you have to take in order to do an executive session, and those things, we didn't have enough time to get them in for today's meeting. So I still do plan on having an executive session next, our next hearing is next week, and by that time we will have filled all the steps that we need to do to have the executive session. The other thing I want to talk about is Maria is our principal clerk. We're looking at reclassifying her position. As you know, when we hired her as the principal clerk. She has been doing a lot more than what we would consider principal clerk kinds of duties. And I just want to bring that in front of the select board that her job should be reclassified. And so I'm just going to run through, and if anybody, and I just, the kinds of things that she does, maybe some of you don't even know that she does it because she talked to me a lot about this, and so I would like to sort of, I have a straw man that I'd like to flesh out with everybody, and if you have any comments or additions or corrections. Well, I looked at her position description, and her position description said that she had to be available 2 hours a day, twice a week for interface with potential petitioners. That's part of her clerking job.
She's here way more than that.
Advise the ZBA chair, vice chair of any new petition. Okay, that's part of her job. Okay. Advertise the new petition twice. Send out notices to the abutters. Attend the ZBA meetings, generate meeting minutes, and generate decisions. That was her job. Now, the following is a description of the board clerk position in our procedural rules and regulations that we approved last year, year before. So this is right out of the rules. The board clerk is a town staff employee, subject to the discretion of the board and its chair. The board clerk shall conduct all correspondence of the board, attend all meetings and hearings, receive and review all applications that are submitted to the town clerk for compliance with rules of the board, generate the required budding list, file petition notices to the local newspaper, keep dockets and accurate minutes to the board's proceedings, generate hearing minutes and minutes, generate draft decisions of the board, compile all required records, maintain necessary files, and generally perform all clerical work of the board. All sounds very reasonable. I mean, that's what was in our... Now, I know that the board has relied upon Maria to perform beyond the scope of that principal clerk. One of the things that none of this ever says is that a lot of what Maria has to do is extremely time sensitive due to legal considerations. She has, unlike a lot of the clerks in the town, she has very specific times. I have 2 weeks to do this, I have a month to do that, I have 90 days, and if she doesn't do it, then there's a lot of legal repercussions. Essentially, a petition can be automatically granted if she doesn't meet the timeline. She also interfaces with petitioners and petitioners' attorney and representatives to ensure that the petitioner's application is properly completed and the appropriate type of appeal. This effort reduces the number of petitions that are rejected due to improper application or wrong type of appeal. requested. It should be noted that once a petition is date stamped by the town clerk, the ZBA is required to hold a hearing, evaluate the petition, generate a decision, and generate meeting minutes. All those tasks take time and funding, and this therefore saves the petitioner the expense of a second petition and reduces the cost of the town. Essentially, whenever a petition is date stamped by the town clerk, we are obligated to meet on it, even if it is wrong and we reject it. And then, so that costs everybody money. Petitioner has to reapply, another $300, and we have to sit here again. That's everybody's cost. She does that, and that's not part of her job description. But it is an important function because it's going to save all of us time and energy. Maria also interfaces with the petitioner and her petitioner's lawyer representative to ensure that all proper documentation is provided in sufficient time for the ZBA members to review. If a hearing is continued, Maria also interfaces with the petitioner and or the petitioner's lawyer representative regarding future documentations required. Maria interfaces directly with the butters regarding ZBA procedural rules and regulations, as well as petition information, and upon request provides any requested documentation within the required interface. There's obviously nothing in our position description that describes that. Maria not only is required to have a specified number of office hours, she also is required to attend ZBA meetings, which are held in the evenings. She also attends ZBA on-site visits, which are routinely conducted on weekends.
That is all such a chore, too.
And she's often doing I would say the last few times she sent us minutes was always on a weekend.
And it's like almost any time of the day and night, I get it.
6 a.m. in the morning, I got something one time. I said, wow, I'm not even feeding cows and I'm getting stuff.
Maria interfaces directly with town council on ZBA matters in conjunction with the ZBA chair. This interface is necessary to ensure that all advice documentation from the town council is properly distributed to ZBA members. In any petition that ends with an appeal, Maria worked closely with town council to provide any documentation required and arrange for meetings to discuss the appeal. I mean, we know with the cell tower one, you were up to your eyeballs in stuff dealing directly with town council. And none of that is obviously in her position description. Maria manages and the correspondence to and from town council, petitioners, attorneys, or representatives, and all ZBA members. In order to comply with state open meetings requirements, she also manages and distributes all communications after a hearing has initiated. It should be noted that a change to Maria's position classification should have little or no impact on town budget. The ZBA members are all unpaid volunteers and receives petition fees, which are supposed to be revenue neutral, meaning the petition costs offsets all ZBA costs. Also, Maria is a part-time employee, so any change to her salary will have a minimal impact on town budget. What I'm suggesting to that really her job is not a principal clerk. It is really more than administrative assistant, and I think that she should be paid as an administrative assistant rather than a town clerk.
So similar to whoever
There's three or four others in the
takes care of the
town.
board, right? The select board?
Select board, administrative,
Yes.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you do as much as the
Right.
person who does the select board.
I think it would be very similar to the planning board's assistant as well.
Yeah.
There's another thing I don't think we've included in there, is the compliance with the open meeting law and the freedom of information.
Okay.
She often has to deal with providing information, documents, and so forth to the public. And that's a legal requirement.
Yep.
And we have no choice about that. And then complying with open meeting is another one, and that is like sometimes if we could communicate with each other
Well, I
through
did.
emails or whatever, that would be fine, but technically speaking, we have to put everything through Maria out to.
Yes, and that's one thing I'm going to talk briefly.
Yeah.
But I did actually say that. In order to comply with state open meeting requirements,
Okay.
she also manages and distributes all communications
Yeah.
after a hearing has initiated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
But you're right, you can play,
The
the freedom of information one
yeah.
is another issue.
Sometimes that can be a hassle, because you gotta go
Yes.
chasing
Yes.
information, old information, so forth.
Anybody have any issue with anything that I've written, or anything that I forgot. I mean,
To change anything, do you have to go to the personnel board?
it's coming, there's a process.
Is she part of the union now? Are you part of the union?
No. So what I would do then is, the first step on this is I would like to take a vote on adopting this essentially and requesting a reclassification of Maria's position as an administrative assistant rather than as a principal clerk.
So moved.
Before you do that, is there anything else?
I second it if I can.
Is that?
I said I second it if I can.
Okay. So anyway, we're all members. Like I said, I spent a little bit of time putting this together, but I don't know it's entirely inclusive. I mean, she does an awful lot of work for us.
I don't think we'd be able to, listen, I saw what was going on before she came. The
I
reason
was
I'm,
taking
You saw that when Jerry and I were running it, and it was total, okay.
she definitely organized everything that was going on the minute she sat in the seat, so.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, she's preventing us from having lawsuits, right? By being able to comply with the rules.
yes.
Because all
I
you
don't
need
think
is
she would let
one.
any of us veer too far off,
Well,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
I'll give
No.
a quick example of this today. There was an email thread going on just about the cell phone attorney presenting the next meeting. And the company had changed something, so there were about 5 emails going back and forth just for that one little thing, because they want to remove the propane tank from the plant. You know,
Yeah, and everyone had a set of plans that she had to print.
yeah.
So this is the a letter that we got from James Hartnett based on this. He believes that the following procedures should be followed, and I discussed this with Jeff Blake as well. When I was talking about other things, he said, "Yeah, that's the appeals board on your behalf should request a rate of pay or position reclassification to the Board of Selectmen. The request should include justification, which is what we're doing, including how the duties and responsibilities have changed, which is what we're doing. The Board of Selectmen would have the option of referring the request to the Personnel Board for consideration. If the Personnel Board agrees with the request, that can propose an amendment to the reclassification table at town meeting." It should be this is another difficult budget year. Well, that's always the case. So anyway, did you make a motion
No, you made the motion.
I made the
seconded it.
motion
to?
to what you read.
Okay.
And I seconded it.
Second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. So I will write this up, and it will go on the select board's agenda, I believe, for the December meeting. I'm not entirely sure, but it will be coming up soon. Matter of fact, it might be sooner than that, because this is not one that needs necessarily public, an open public.
This doesn't have
Okay.
to have a public hearing, you
I
mean?
thought we had, I
There's-
thought if you proposed fee changes, you had to.
No,
have,
this isn't a fee change.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm back.
You're
to
back in the
other
other one.
thing.
Yep.
Wake up.
No, this is not it at all.
Keep it up. Okay, last thing. I want to do, we all know what happened at the last meeting. I don't want to go into particulars, I don't want to be pointing fingers, but what I want to do here is do a lessons learned and how can we improve and make this not happen again. Because I was embarrassed with what happened at the last, I think most of you were at the last.
And we were spared from the
at the last
shorelines
hearing.
so far.
So, but rather than
That's
dwell
tomorrow.
on it, I think we want to use this as a learning experience and understand how we can essentially not let that happen in the future. So again, I put down, and feel free to jump in whenever you want.
Could I suggest that we handle this when all the members are here?
Well, I think, no, I would rather talk about it now, because I have concerns if someone should still be a member. I took offense to his emails this week, highly, about him saying, "I'll be here if you need me."
Yes.
That means your time is more valuable than my time,
Right,
and your
and-
time, whatever.
Yes.
And then he says, oh, I can't be there because I got a meeting. Like, so what game is he playing? So
I don't think
that's
we should get
just,
into this.
That's what I want to get into
I don't
next
think,
week.
because he's not president, I don't think we ought to bring up
I don't think we
anything.
should talk about it at all.
I'm not talking about,
I understand.
I'm just talking about
But I'm saying
procedures.
if we're looking to educate people or get input, I think we all should be here.
Okay, all right, I will, if everybody thinks
But
that's important.
are
I
we
will
sure he's
table
gonna be
it.
here? Because he's only gonna be
I
here
don't
if we
want-
ask him to.
Well,
I mean, that's what his email said. And
Yes.
that's, again,
I was on the phone with him over the weekend, and he intended to be here.
yeah, but that's not what he said twice.
Okay, all right, I don't want to get into he and she
Okay,
and who
no.
and what.
I'm
All I
just
wanna know
saying
is
is that
do
we
we-
have to have a guarantee that he's actually going to show up next week.
Well, I would say that I would be, again, this is a board thing, it's not my, whatever the board feels is appropriate, is what we should do. I have no problem with tabling this under the condition that who's ever at the meeting next week is, we will continue this. Because we're
Because
gonna.
you have to, because that's, I assume that's what the executive given.
That's what the executive is about. So,
Now, when-
So we shouldn't even be discussing this if we're gonna go to an executive session.
but this has got nothing to do with the executive session. This is just the way we run business.
We should run business by the book.
There's other things. There's communication. There's, anyway, I don't want to get into all that because we're talking
When you
about.
go into executive session, you're required to state a reason.
I
for
have
it
all the
on
rules for
agenda.
all of that.
That's what I'm saying, but you are,
Yes.
so you have to come up with what you're gonna state.
Yes, that's a different topic. So, a show of hands, how many people want to delay this till next week?
Well,
Or-
I won't participate in the discussion unless it's very general and doesn't talk about anybody.
I'm not talking about any, this is,
That's what I just said, as long as.
it's got nothing to do with people, it's got to do with procedures.
Right.
Yeah, I'll say we go to next week.
What do you think?
I'm okay if everybody's okay. I mean,
Constance?
it's only a week, so.
I'm fine with it. I don't really, I don't feel comfortable at all talking about another board member.
We're not talking about, I'm not talking about another, I'm talking about
I
procedures.
don't feel,
I don't think we can talk about procedures without talking about the other.
I'm talking
board
about
About specifics.
just
as an
keeping everything civilized, keeping communications open, so it's not a,
Yeah, but my.
Yeah, well, I
point
think
is-
communications were open, so I think,
They were
No,
much
that-
too
no.
open.
See, that, it keeps coming
Well,
back.
okay, all right, I'm tabling it,
But-
Thank you.
Let me
It's-
just say why. I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying if we want to educate board members and have a back and forth about it,
Mhm.
we should have all the board members here.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
all
saying.
right.
Okay, all right, I'll table it to next week.
And
then.
isn't that done, that sort of thing done in executive session? Do we do it on the camera? I don't understand that procedure. Is that something that happens?
But We're only
it's
talking
on
about
camera.
procedures. There's no reason why that has to be done in executive session,
Yeah.
because
What
that
you-
is not a
Yeah.
personality thing,
What
that's
you're
a
talking
procedure.
about. What you're talking about doesn't have to be done in executive. Is that what you just said?
That's what I'm saying.
And I agree.
You're talking about the procedures.
I'm talking
Yes.
about, right, how do we manage our own process?
yes. Well, just on the record, I'm not going to talk about, I think the communication about how that meeting was going to be run was adequately communicated to all of us prior to that meeting. And if any one of us, here or not, had an issue with that, then it should have been taken care of off camera.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to table this discussion to be in concurrence with the meeting next week. Is there, we get a lot done tonight. Is there anything else that's?
So
I think-
one question, so when we were going back and forth, like, when your mother was sick, and the attorney piped in and said, stop
Oh,
talking about, because it's an open meeting, which then says to me, then, if he believes that when we communicate via email, it could be construed as an open meeting, then I think we all need Westport email addresses.
Well-
Because none of your email addresses are
No,
secure.
no, but,
There is no expectation of privacy to any of your emails.
No.
And that means everything is open, no matter what we say, even Maria sending us the plans is deemed to be public information because
Well,
Gmail.
I think what
et cetera,
Jeff,
is
I think
not.
what Jeff was getting at was that one thing we, and I'm probably as bad as anybody else, that we shouldn't do, we can send emails that are administrative. Can you attend a meeting? Can you do
Yeah.
that? That's not, but anything to do with a petition that is ongoing or scheduled, we can only communicate directly to Maria, and she can only communicate directly to me. We cannot do copy all, we cannot send things to everybody. So if I have an issue, I send it to Maria. That doesn't violate
Yeah.
open meeting.
But it does because your email isn't secure.
There's no email that's secure. Her email isn't secure. Her Westport.
Well, but at least it's, I'm talking about, her email is as secure as it can be because the Westport town puts in certain procedures to keep it secure. But a Gmail account or a Hotmail account is notoriously known and could be subpoenaed to be disclosed because basically, you know, when you're Googling and all of a sudden like, oh, I was just checking out these boots, or I was actually talking to somebody in a text or an email, and all of a sudden you get an ad for exactly what you're talking about, is because their algorithms that are going on with Gmail and all the other accounts that basically fish information out what you're saying. So, in a legal perspective, I cannot. Like, we have clients who are just starting out and all they have is their Gmail account. I can't send them anything to their account because it is not private. The Westport email is private to the extent that anything in the internet can be private because there's security put into place. So if just even talking about administrative stuff back and forth and not having it amongst us, it technically is the open meeting because basically you are communicating with the world and you're communicating with Maria outside of a Westport email. And it's just something we should bring up to the attorney because I don't know if he knows that we're all I know mine is secure because it's a law firm email, right? So, but still, then there's also the issue of when you're communicating to me, is it deemed that I'm giving you legal advice when I'm actually responding to that email, right? But I think it's something we should, if next time he's here, I wouldn't reach out to him.
I can broach with him because I haven't talked about something else. But
I think it's something that I think
he's told me that. Again, he's really more concerned about
us all talking about something together. Yes, right.
But not copying all, not sending it to that all the communications, if it goes through Maria, is sufficient. I will verify that.
Yeah, it's just that something you may not like. If he's going to be that particular about an open meeting, then I think let's be realistic here, and technically we all should have Westport email addresses. I mean, the select board does. You do, right? It doesn't cost. I mean, I have my own domain. It doesn't cost me more to have 1 or 400 email domains. It'll just have the problem that someone's gonna have to go to everybody's houses figure out how to put it on their phones.
Okay. Anyway, just lessons learned for that. And I do that as much as anybody. Anyway. Anything else that we need to discuss, or Barbara's up?
Oh, I got something like we could have let Ralph go right after the hearings. I'm curious as to does he have to stay when there's no hearing?
No, he doesn't even have to be here. He's here because he wants to.
He just likes us.
It's a freebie. Love the South.
His wife doesn't want him home.
No wife. No wife.
No wife, no life either, Jerry. Right?
All right, Barbara.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.